Today, I'm gonna make a top 10 of the best structure that you can use as a starter base. And since the concept of starter base is pretty subjective, I'm gonna clarify here what I consider a good starter base. So a starter base for me is a place where I'll establish my first base. By this time, I'm probably full iron, have done a bit of exploring, and I need a place to settle down to place all the stuff that I have in my inventory. It has to be big enough to hold a small wall of chests, beds, crafting station, and maybe a place for enchantment. It is the place that I will go from iron or stuff up to enchanted, netherite, and with an elytra. So basically, by the time that I'm strong enough to take on a bigger build, or that I have enough gear to collect all the resources to build myself a bigger base. So of course the place has to be not too hard to clear, so no big bosses, and contain some good loot or has villagers. So without further ado, let's start with the number 10. So for the number 10, we have the Bathhouse from When Dungeons Arise. This place is fairly common, you can find a lot along your journey. There is a few spawner to clear, but all the mobs in here are pretty easy to kill with iron gear. There's a really good decent amount of food in all of the chests. There's a decent amount of space. You might need to clear some of the walls because it's kind of cramped, but there's enough space up there to place some chests, to have some crafting station or an enchantment station. There is multiple variants of the Bathhouse, but they are mostly the same. But my favorite one is the one with the hidden room in the center, and it contains a bit more loot than the usual one. And coming in at number 9, we have the Gatekeeper's house. This modest house will contain a few chests containing some food, some really simple items, but it is pretty safe since you have the Gatekeeper to keep you company, and won't be mad if you open his chest. The place will also contain a portal to go to the blue sky dimension, so it's a good place to stay if you want to do a starter base and explore the dimension. At number 8, we have the Haunted Manor from Integrated Dungeons and Structure. It looks dangerous at first glance, but the mansion is not. But the inside is pretty big. It needs some tidying up. It contains some minor booby traps here and there, nothing really dangerous. There's a bedroom upstairs with a bit more loot. But the most interesting part is that this structure contains a basement with a dungeon inside. It is a bit dangerous to go here, but it contains a lot of loot. But you can also make it one of the storage rooms because it's pretty big, but you're not obligated to go through here to settle in this base. This dungeon is extremely optional, so if you don't feel confident enough to kill all those monsters and explore the inside, you don't have to. So there's basically a dungeon within your base that you can clear once you feel ready to do so. Coming at number 7, we have the Bazaar from Integrated Dungeons and Structure. And this one is pretty rare, hence the number 7. This one can be found in the desert. It contains a whole village inside one structure, and most of the villagers are already trapped, ready to be given a workstation. The chest contains some moderate loot, a lot of food, and there's always a hidden chest in the fountain with some good loot. The structure itself is also pretty well lit, so you won't be attacked or exploded by creeper at night. And most importantly, it is big enough to hold all of your storage or everything you need. And for number 6, we have the Farmhouse from Integrated Dungeons and Structure, and this one pretty much for the same reason as the Bazaar. It contains a village inside the structure where the villager can't even go out. It has already a pretty decent farm, a lot of food inside the chests, and a few pieces of the Create mod if you want to craft something from the Create mod. The place is big enough, safe, has a village, but doesn't contain any loot that will help you towards your progression, like iron, gear, etc. It has a really nice bedroom with a few items inside, so it is a pretty safe place to settle until the late game. Now coming in at number 5, we have the Greenwood Pub from When Dungeons Arise. And this one, once again, contains a small village inside. I think you can see a pattern repeating. I love having villagers inside my base. They are pretty easy to set up. This place is a bit cramped. You will maybe need to clear up a bunch of the useless decoration, but this one also contains a cellar. The first few floors of the cellar is not really dangerous, and it contains a few potions, some food, and some really basic stuff. There's a hidden chest under the water here with more gold, but if you keep going down, the loot will become increasingly good, but there's a good chance that, well, this place is flooded, that you will find some very dangerous mobs. This place contains a lot of unique potions with good and bad effect, a lot of stuff for brewing, but usually you will find these drunken villagers, and they do so much damage. Like, I'm full heart, I have 2 hearts. I don't know why they're strong like that, but they have 2 HP, so they're kind of easy to kill, but they can 2-shot you. So since this one has some decent loot in the basement, but you have to go through some mobs, it is not at the top of the list, but it is a pretty good structure, pretty well defendable, has a village, and some food. Now for number 4, we have the Pyromancer Tower from Iron Spells and Spellbooks. There isn't much outside, like a few barrels with stuff here and there, it's still pretty good loot. At the top you can find an Ancient Knight that you don't really have to fight yet with some loot, but the interesting part is not not really from the outside, but from the inside of the tower. If you go down, you will find the Pyromancer in his room. This guy is a neutral character that you can trade with. So if you never open his chest, he will never be hostile. Although his chest contains some pretty decent loot, as well as a few hidden rooms, like this one here, with a lot of fire ale, and even more space. If you go down the library here, down into the cellar, there's even more place to settle down. The loot inside here is not that good, but it contains a lot of bottles and a lot of things to make potions. Now, if you still want the loot of these chests without angering the Pyromancer, you cannot break the chest, you cannot open the chest, but you can put a hopper below the chest, extracting the items without angering this guy. The only thing is there's no good way to destroy the chest yourself. You would have to destroy it with an external way that does not count as a player interaction. And if you're pretty early on in your adventure and you don't feel strong enough to defeat the Pyromancer yourself, you can trap him in a boat, just like that, maybe lock him up in a room, if you'd want to have it for later, or you can simply put sand on top of his head and wait for him to die. It's gonna take a long time, but eventually the sand will kill him. He's healing slower than the damage of the sand, so... And there we go. And even if you didn't land the final hit, he will drop all of his item. And now you can easily open the chest and loot all of his stuff without fear of getting blasted. Coming at number 3, we have the Monastery from When Dungeons Arise. This again is a village structure containing some farms, some food, but also a lot of books for your enchantment table. It will also always contain a map to another structure. This place has a golem. It is very easily defendable from any attackers, and it already contains some librarian that you can trade with. Some of them can have some tunnels like that you will have to let up if you don't want mobs like this guy here to spawn and ruin your day. It is easily one of my favorite structure of When Dungeons Arise. Coming in at number 2, we have the Tinker's Workshop, and this one is really biased to the fact that I love to play with the Create mod, and this place contains a lot of stuff that is Create related. It is a really big and beautiful structure that contains a lot of really good loot. There's a room upstairs for your bedroom or your enchantment tables, containing again some loot inside chest. On the wall, if you look at the wall, there's a bunch of random stuff here and there. But the most interesting part about this structure is the basement. And just like the Greenwood Pub or the Haunted Manor, if you go down this ladder, you will end up in a big dungeon. And once again, it is 100% optional. If you want to go here, you can, but you don't have to if you don't feel ready to go there. There's some good stuff inside the chest, inside the barrels. There's some lore here and there, but most importantly, there is so much, but so much stuff from the Create mod. Oh yeah, a lot of traps, be careful. But if you go down here, look at all these drills. If you want to make a drill machine, this is the drill dream. There's also a frick load of moving parts, component, gearbox, cogs, everything. It already comes with fans, and it has a huge water wheel machine already integrated in the structure, so you can easily redirect the power and use it for your own. This dungeon is massive. It has many layers, and at the end of it, down this elevator shaft, there's so much stuff. Believe me, this place is crazy. There's like, look at the number of gearbox you can have here. But there's a vault at the end containing, yeah, you guessed it, item vault. But behind that is even more chests with more advanced loot inside. This place is crazy. And now before we go to number 1, let's look at some honorable mention that almost made the top 10. And the first of them we're gonna talk about is the Witherstorm structure. It is always going to be at spawn, so you are certain to have a place to live. The loot inside is pretty mediocre. It is not really big. There's not a lot of place to place anything, but it contains 3 Wither skeleton skulls that you can use for further use when you want to fight a Wither. There's no obligation to fight a Witherstorm if you have the Witherstorm mod. The next one that almost made the list is the Enchanting Tower from Integrated Dungeons and Structure, and once again, this one is way too small for me, but you can still place a bunch of chests inside here. At each level, it contains some decent loot, coal, but the most important part is at the top you already have a cleric villager sitting there with a sack and some enchanted books. Another pretty good one is the abandoned house. This one is big enough this time, but contains a bunch of basic mobs. But once you find and destroy all of the spawners, this place becomes a little bit more cozy. It has some repair to do, it contains some basic loot, but at least you can call it a home once you've cleared out all the mobs. The next one is the Mangrove Hut from Iron Spells and Spellbook. And this one for me is pretty much just a downgrade from the Pyromancer tower. First of all, it's in a swamp. Most of the time, it's stacked up on water. There's the apothecarist inside, and just like the Pyromancer, you can trade with him or kill him with sand if you don't feel strong enough. You can hide him in a boat outside the structure, but the loot inside is significantly worse than the enchantment tower. It is extremely cramped. You don't have a lot of space to build your stuff inside. It still contains some hidden barrel with good stuff in it, but for me, it's more of a structure to like run in, get the stuff, and get out. But I can see myself settling in here if I don't find anything else. Then we have the Mushroom Village from When Dungeons Arise. This one is a bit more dangerous, as it contains piglin brutes, but it is a well-spacious area containing some chests with some really basic but good stuff inside for a starter base. It contains a bunch of houses, so if you find a way to bring some villagers, they can have all their little houses. And these houses will also contain some loot. And right now, it's kind of funny that it generated right next to a Tinker's Workshop. If this was my survival world, I would definitely settle here. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Tinker's Citadel. Yep, another Tinker's one, but this one is like the workshop, but on steroids. First of all, just as you enter, you can notice the side of the bridge is made out of anvil, so you will probably never run out of anvil. There's some block of brass as building blocks of the structure everywhere. And if you go inside, the floor is made out of brass. There's already some moving parts in here. And when you go inside, there is 2 spawner. And these are usually skeleton or zombie spawner. So nothing really to be scared of. You destroy that and you already have one safe giant room for your stuff. There's also a giant courtyard that you can go. And this one has what the heck is that? That's not there usually. Oh, because it's embedded in a village. Wow. Yeah, of course, things like that may happen. But as you can see, there's also more brass block. But inside here, there's a hidden room that you are not obligated to go yet, as this place can spawn some forgotten. Right now, it seems that we only have some normal zombie and skeleton, which would be really great. But you can also find a giant loot room with a bunch of diamonds, gear, and more stuff. But that's not the only dungeon this structure has, because the biggest dungeon is this tower over here. Also, the structure contains a frick ton of rooms with books, copper. You can also break these books here, and sometimes, just like that, they will give you some enchanted books. And there is no spawners or anything inside those rooms. They are pretty safe to explore. But if you keep exploring, you will find your way inside the tower. And in this tower, there's a lot of forgotten spawner. These guys are kind of strong if you're not really well geared. And as you go up the tower, these are some pretty good books, you will find better and better loot. There's a room full of copper pipes. There's a room full of like other create stuff with some toolbox. There's some loot here and there, left and right. And if we go up one more floor, there's gonna be a brass room with a lot of brass related item. And we're not even done yet. There's some fake artifact from various Minecraft related content. And this is way more than enough books for your enchantment tables. And if you go up at the top, you will find a Totem of Undying, a giant dining room with even more loot inside. Oh, yeah, that's not the last floor. There's another floor with nothing much inside other than like some sort of like globe or something. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to be, probably the Earth, but this is honestly one of the best structure I could think of settling in. Unfortunately, there is no villagers inside, well, unless you have like literally a village embedded in your courtyard, but this is for me the best structure you can use as a starter base. So tell me what I missed, because of course, I cannot include every mob. I haven't played every mob. This was from my personal experience, but also from your comments and on the Discord, and I suggest that you join the Discord so you know what I cook up. So I hope you enjoyed and you discovered some new and cool structure, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!